Have you ever ignored a stranger who needed help? One rainy night, everyone walked away from a man lying on the ground. Everyone. Except one poor waitress. She had only $20 in her pocket, but what she did next changed two lives forever. Emily was 24 years old. She worked as a waitress in a small restaurant called Sunny Cafe. The cafe was old, the chairs were simple, the walls needed fresh paint. Every day, Emily woke up at 5 o'clock in the morning. She took a bus for 1 hour to reach work. She worked 6 days every week. Her salary was very small. She earned just enough money to pay for a tiny apartment and buy food. She did not have expensive clothes. She did not own a car. She did not even have enough money to buy a new phone. But Emily always smiled. Her mother often told her, "Kindness is free. Never stop being kind." Emily believed those words. Every customer who entered the cafe received a warm smile. Some customers were friendly, some were rude, some never said thank you. Still, Emily treated everyone with respect. Her manager often said, "Emily, you work too hard." She simply smiled and replied, "I want people to leave happier than when they came in." One evening, after a long day, Emily counted the money in her purse, $20. That was all she had until payday. Rent was due in 3 days. She still needed groceries. Her shoes were old and worn, but she whispered to herself, "Everything will be okay." She picked up her umbrella and began walking home through the rain. She had no idea that this ordinary walk would change her life forever. The rain became heavier. The streets were almost empty. Cars passed quickly, splashing water onto the sidewalk. Emily pulled her jacket tighter around her shoulders. As she walked past a large office building, she noticed something strange. A black luxury car stood with its lights still on. Its driver's door was open. About 20 feet away, a man lay on the wet sidewalk. People walked past him. Some looked for a second, then they kept walking. One person even said, "Someone else will help." Emily stopped. Her heart began to beat faster. She looked around. Nobody was helping. She slowly walked toward the man. He looked to be about 60 years old. His expensive suit was soaked by the rain. His face was pale. His breathing was slow. Emily knelt beside him. "Sir?" There was no answer. "Sir, can you hear me?" Still nothing. She gently checked his pulse. It was weak, very weak. Emily immediately took out her phone. Her hands were shaking. She dialed the emergency number. "Please hurry," she said. "I think this man needs help." The operator asked, "Is he breathing?" "Yes, but very slowly." "Stay with him. An ambulance is on the way." Emily looked at the unconscious man. Rain continued to fall around them. She carefully placed her jacket under his head to keep him as comfortable as possible. She held his cold hand. "It's okay," she whispered. "Please don't give up." Far away, the sound of an ambulance slowly grew louder. But Emily had no idea who this man really was. The sound of the ambulance became louder. Blue and red lights flashed across the wet street. 2 paramedics quickly jumped out. "Move back, please," one of them said. Emily stepped aside, but she stayed close. She was worried about the man. The paramedics checked his pulse. One of them looked serious. "His heartbeat is very weak." The other paramedic quickly placed an oxygen mask over the man's face. They lifted him onto a stretcher. As they prepared to leave, one paramedic turned to Emily. "Did you find him?" "Yes," Emily answered. "He was lying here alone." The paramedic nodded. "You probably saved his life." Emily looked surprised. "I only called for help." The paramedic smiled. "Many people walk away. You stayed. That made the difference." Emily watched the ambulance disappear into the rainy night. She picked up her wet jacket from the ground. It was dirty. Her shoes were soaked. She missed the last bus home. She smiled quietly. "If he's alive," she whispered, "that's all that matters." At City General Hospital, doctors rushed the patient into the emergency room. Several nurses surrounded him. The chief doctor looked at his face. His eyes became wide. "Oh no. It's Mr. Jonathan Carter." The room suddenly became silent. Every doctor knew that name. Jonathan Carter was one of the richest businessmen in the country. He owned hotels, hospitals, technology companies, and thousands of employees worked for him. But tonight, none of that mattered. He was fighting for his life. The doctors worked quickly. Minutes felt like hours. Finally, the heart monitor showed a steady rhythm. The chief doctor smiled. He made it. Everyone breathed a sigh of relief. The next morning, Jonathan slowly opened his eyes. Everything looked blurry. He saw white walls, bright lights, hospital machines. A doctor walked into the room. "Mr. Carter, you are very lucky," Jonathan spoke softly. "What happened?" "You suffered a serious heart attack. You collapsed outside your office." Jonathan closed his eyes. He remembered feeling pain. Then, nothing. "Who found me?" The doctor smiled. "A young waitress. She stayed with you in the rain. She called the ambulance. If she had walked away," the doctor paused, "you probably wouldn't be here today." Jonathan became silent. A stranger, someone who didn't know him, had saved his life. He whispered, "I want to thank her." The doctor nodded. "We don't know her name." Jonathan looked surprised. "No one asked?" It all happened very quickly. The only information they had was that she wore a blue restaurant uniform. Jonathan looked out the hospital window. He quietly said, "Find her, no matter how long it takes." While the richest businessman in the city searched for his rescuer, Emily returned to work. Nothing had changed. She cleaned tables, served coffee, carried heavy plates, smiled at customers. No one knew what she had done, not even her manager. A customer complained because the coffee wasn't hot enough. Another customer forgot to pay. Someone accidentally dropped soup on her uniform. It was just another ordinary day. During lunch, Emily opened her wallet. She only had $12 left. She smiled anyway. "I'll be okay." At that exact moment, across the city, Jonathan Carter's lawyer had begun searching every restaurant for a waitress wearing a blue uniform. Neither of them knew their lives were about to cross paths again. The morning sun shone through the windows of Carter Corporation. Jonathan Carter sat quietly in his office. He looked much healthier now, but his face was serious. His lawyer, Mr. David Brown, entered the room. "Good morning, Mr. Carter." Jonathan smiled. "David, did you find the young woman?" David shook his head. "Not yet. We've checked 12 restaurants. No one knows her." Jonathan looked out the window. "There are millions of people in this city, but someone with a kind heart like hers is rare. I don't want to reward her because I'm rich. I want to thank her because she reminded me what humanity looks like." David nodded. "I'll keep searching." Jonathan added, "And don't announce a reward. I don't want people pretending to be her. I want to find the real person." Across town, Emily opened her mailbox after work. There was a white envelope inside. She smiled. Maybe it was her paycheck. But when she opened it, her smile disappeared. It was a notice from her landlord. Rent overdue. Payment required within 3 days. Otherwise, she would have to leave her apartment. Emily sat quietly on the small staircase outside her building. She looked at the paper again. She had never missed rent before. But this month, her mother had been sick. Emily had spent nearly all her savings on medicine. She didn't regret it. Her mother's health was more important than money. Still, she didn't know what to do now. That evening, she called her mother. "Mom, how are you feeling today?" "I'm much better, dear." "Did you eat dinner?" Emily smiled. "Yes." She didn't tell her mother the truth. She had skipped dinner to save money. The next morning, Emily walked to work. Outside the cafe, she noticed an elderly man trying to carry 2 heavy grocery bags. Without thinking, she ran over. "Sir, may I help you?" The old man smiled. "Thank you. My knees aren't as strong as they used to be." Emily carried the bags all the way to his apartment. The man offered her some money. Emily gently shook her head. "No, thank you. I'm happy to help." The old man smiled warmly. "The world needs more people like you." Emily laughed softly. "My mother always says, if you can help someone today, don't wait until tomorrow." She waved goodbye and walked back to work. She never noticed the black luxury car parked across the street. Inside the car, David Brown had seen everything. He had come to Sunny Cafe to ask about the mysterious waitress. Instead, he watched Emily help a stranger without expecting anything in return. David quietly whispered, "It has to be her." That afternoon, the cafe was busy. Customers filled every table. Emily hurried from one table to another. Just then, a well-dressed man entered the cafe. He looked around carefully. Then he walked toward Emily. "Excuse me, my name is David Brown." Emily smiled politely. "Welcome. How may I help you?" David looked at her blue uniform. His heart skipped a beat. He took a small photograph from his pocket. It showed the security camera image from the rainy night. Although the picture was blurry, he recognized her kind eyes. David asked gently, "Were you walking home 3 nights ago during the rain?" Emily looked surprised. "Yes." "Why?" David smiled. "I believe you saved someone's life." Emily became nervous. "Oh, I only called an ambulance." It wasn't a big thing. David smiled even more. "For the man you saved? It was everything." Emily frowned slightly. "Who was he?" David took a deep breath. "He is Jonathan Carter, the founder of Carter Corporation." Emily's eyes became wide. "The billionaire?" David nodded. "He has been looking for you every single day." Emily stood there in complete silence. She had never imagined that the stranger lying on the sidewalk was one of the richest men in the country. Emily looked at David for a moment. She still could not believe his words. "The billionaire wants to meet me?" David smiled. "Yes, he asked me to find you." Emily looked down at her simple blue uniform. "My shift doesn't end until 6. David nodded politely. "I'll wait." Emily smiled. "No. My customers are waiting. Please tell Mr. Carter I'll come after work." David was surprised. Most people would have left immediately, but Emily returned to serving coffee. She treated every customer with the same kindness. David quietly thought, "Now I understand why Mr. Carter wants to meet her." 6 o'clock arrived. Emily finished cleaning the last table. She changed into her simple white shirt and old blue jeans. Outside the cafe, a long black luxury car waited. It looked completely out of place on the small street. People stopped to look. Some even took pictures. Emily walked slowly toward the car. David opened the door. "Please." Emily had never ridden in such an expensive car before. She sat quietly looking out the window. The city lights reflected on the glass. Her heart beat faster with every passing minute. The car stopped in front of Carter Mansion. Emily stared in amazement. The house looked more like a palace. Beautiful gardens surrounded the building. A large fountain stood in the center. Everything was perfectly clean. David smiled. "Mr. Carter is waiting." Emily took a deep breath. She quietly followed him inside. The entrance hall was enormous. Crystal chandeliers sparkled above. Paintings covered the walls. Emily had never seen anything like it. Suddenly, a familiar voice spoke behind her. "Miss." She turned around. Jonathan Carter stood there. He was healthy now. He smiled warmly. "You stayed with me that rainy night." Emily smiled gently. "I'm happy you're feeling better." Jonathan slowly walked toward her. His eyes were full of gratitude. "You saved my life." Emily shook her head. "I only did what anyone should do." Jonathan smiled softly. "No. Many people walked away. You stayed." "There is a difference." Jonathan invited Emily into his study. They sat across from each other. A housekeeper served tea. Jonathan placed an envelope on the table. "Inside is a small gift." Emily looked confused. "What is it?" Jonathan smiled. "A check." "I want to thank you." Emily slowly opened the envelope. Her eyes became wide. It was enough money to pay her rent for many years. She gently closed the envelope. Then she pushed it back across the table. Jonathan looked surprised. "You don't want it?" Emily smiled politely. "I didn't help you for money. I helped because you needed help." The room became completely silent. Even David was speechless. Jonathan looked at Emily for several seconds. No one had ever refused such a gift before. Finally, Jonathan smiled. "For the second time, you've surprised me." Jonathan leaned forward. "If you won't accept money, will you accept an opportunity?" Emily looked curious. "What kind of opportunity?" Jonathan asked. "What is your dream?" Emily became quiet. She had not thought about that question in years. Finally, she answered, "When I was young, I wanted to become a restaurant manager." But college was too expensive, so I started working. Jonathan nodded. I have more than 200 restaurants. I need honest people, not just experienced people. Honest people? He smiled. I'd like to offer you a paid management training position. Emily couldn't speak. She looked at David, then back at Jonathan. Me? Jonathan nodded. Yes. You've already shown me the one quality that cannot be taught. Kindness. You can learn business. You can learn management, but you cannot teach someone to care about others. Emily's eyes filled with tears. No one had ever believed in her like this before. 1 week later, Emily walked into Carter Hospitality headquarters for her first day. She wore a simple navy blue business suit. Her shoes were still the same old shoes she had worn as a waitress. She looked around the beautiful office. Everything was clean and modern. Employees hurried through the hallways. Emily took a deep breath. I hope I can do this. A woman named Sarah greeted her. Welcome, Emily. I'm your training manager. Emily smiled. It's nice to meet you. Sarah showed her around the building. This is the customer service department. These are the training rooms. And this is our flagship restaurant. Emily listened carefully. She wrote everything in a small notebook. She asked questions. She thanked everyone who helped her. Many employees liked her immediately. But not everyone. 2 employees stood near the coffee machine. Mark crossed his arms. So, that's the famous waitress. Lisa laughed. The boss hired her personally. She must have special treatment. Mark shook his head. People like us worked for years. She arrives in 1 week. Doesn't seem fair. Emily heard part of the conversation. She felt sad. But she said nothing. Instead, she continued learning that afternoon. The restaurant became very busy. One waiter accidentally dropped an expensive tray. Plates crashed onto the floor. Everyone turned to look. The young waiter looked terrified. I'm so sorry. My first week. I'll lose my job. Emily immediately knelt beside him. It's okay. Let's clean it together. She helped pick up every broken plate. She never blamed him. She simply smiled. We all make mistakes. Across the room, Jonathan Carter watched everything through the restaurant's security cameras. He smiled quietly. Jonathan had not hired Emily because she saved his life alone. He wanted to know something more. Would she remain kind, even after her life improved? Without telling anyone, Jonathan created a small test. The next morning, he dressed in old clothes. He wore a worn-out jacket. An old cap covered his face. No one recognized him. He walked into one of his own restaurants. The lunch crowd was busy. Some employees ignored him. One waiter whispered, "He probably can't afford anything." Another employee looked away. Then Emily noticed him. She walked over with her usual smile. "Good afternoon." "Welcome." She gently pulled out a chair. "Please have a seat." Jonathan smiled. "Thank you." Emily handed him a menu. "Take your time. If you have any questions, I'm happy to help." Jonathan ordered the cheapest meal. Emily treated him exactly the same as every other guest. When the food arrived, she noticed he looked tired. "Would you like some hot tea?" "It's free today." Jonathan looked into her eyes. She still didn't recognize him. No one was watching. There were no cameras she knew about. There was nothing to gain. Yet, she was still kind. After lunch, Jonathan stood up. He slowly removed his cap. The restaurant became silent. Everyone recognized him immediately. The manager hurried over. "Mr. Carter? I'm so sorry." Jonathan raised his hand. "It's all right." He looked toward Emily. She smiled. "I hope you enjoyed your meal." Jonathan nodded. "I did." Then he turned to every employee. "I came here today for one reason, to see how people treat someone they believe is poor." The room became completely silent. Some employees looked down at the floor. Jonathan continued, "Kindness should never depend on someone's clothes or their bank account." He smiled at Emily. "Today, you passed a test you didn't even know existed." The employees began clapping. Even Mark and Lisa lowered their heads in embarrassment. For the first time, They understood why Emily had been chosen, not because she had saved a billionaire, but because she treated everyone with the same respect. The next morning, Emily received a message. "Mr. Carter would like to see you." She walked into his office. Jonathan smiled. "Please, have a seat." Emily thanked him and sat down. Jonathan looked at her for a moment. "Emily, I've watched you carefully. You work hard. You respect everyone. You never complain. And most importantly, you are kind when no one is watching." Emily smiled shyly. "My mother taught me that." Jonathan nodded. "Your kindness has reminded many people in this company what truly matters." He slid a folder across the desk. "I have a new offer for you." Emily opened it slowly. Her eyes widened. It was a promotion. She would become the assistant operations manager of Carter Hospitality. The position came with a much better salary, health insurance, and professional training. Emily looked up. "Mr. Carter, are you sure?" Jonathan smiled. "I've never been more sure of anything." Emily was grateful, but before signing the papers, she asked, "May I make one request?" Jonathan looked surprised. "Of course." Emily took a deep breath. "I don't want to be the only person who gets a chance." She continued, "When I worked at Sunny Cafe, I met many hard-working people. They were honest, they cared about customers, but they never had the chance to learn new skills." She looked at Jonathan. "What if we create a training program for people like them? For waiters, for cleaners, for kitchen workers, so they can become managers one day?" Jonathan smiled. Then he laughed happily. "I was thinking about rewarding one person, but you're thinking about helping hundreds." He stood up and held out his hand. "Let's do it." 1 year passed. The Carter Hospitality Training Program had become a great success. Hundreds of employees had learned new skills. Many had been promoted. The company became known for treating its workers with respect. Customers noticed the difference. Employee happiness increased. Business improved. One afternoon, Emily visited Sunny Cafe. Everything looked the same. The old tables, the familiar smell of coffee, the small counter. Her former manager smiled warmly. "Emily, we're so proud of you." Emily hugged him. "I learned many important lessons here." Then she noticed a young waitress looking worried. The girl quietly wiped tears from her eyes. Emily walked over. "Is everything all right?" The young waitress sighed. "I want to study hotel management, but I can't afford it." Emily smiled. "I know exactly how you feel." She handed the young woman a business card. "Come to Carter Hospitality on Monday. We have a scholarship and training program." The young waitress looked up in surprise. "Really? Everyone deserves a chance." Several weeks later, Jonathan and Emily stood together at the graduation ceremony for the newest trainees. More than 100 employees received certificates. Families applauded proudly. Jonathan walked to the stage. He smiled at the audience. "Many people think success begins with money." He paused, "but they're wrong. Success begins with kindness." Then he invited Emily to speak. Emily looked around the room. She smiled. "A year ago, I was a poor waitress. I believed no one noticed me. But every act of kindness matters. You never know whose life you may change. And sometimes, that person changes yours." The audience stood and applauded. Jonathan looked at Emily with pride, not because she had saved his life, but because she had inspired hundreds of others to help one another. Moral of the story: kindness is never wasted. You may not know who needs your help today. A small act of kindness can change a life. Sometimes, it can change your own life too. If you enjoyed this story, please like this video, subscribe for more English stories, and remember, the greatest wealth is not money. It is a kind heart. Thank you for listening. See you in the next English story.